The world is dying to know, Tanner, what is your favorite squat cue?
When you want to know favorite squat cue, who's the first guy you think of? Me, of course. What's my
the
favorite
squat master
cue?
himself.
The squat master. What I would say about this before we get started is out of the big three lifts, squat is the one that's always been the most challenging for me. Bench and deadlift to a certain degree come relatively natural. Like I've definitely had to work on them, work on cues, work on technique, work on stuff like that, but there is a natural element to them for me. Where the squat, every pound I have ever gained on my squat has been worked for very hard.
There was no free lunches?
There's no free lunches. Nothing ever happened on accident. I did have happy accidents before on deadlift where it's like my technique or something just took a weird corner and I'm like all of a sudden deadlifting 30 more pounds. That happened. That never happened on squat. I earned every rep and every pound that came in. For reference, squat is my worst lift. I did get to a 600-pound squat though, so it's like took a shitload of work to get to a 600-pound squat, and it's the one I worked on the most because it was what I was worst on. It actually brings up an interesting point. Who do you take advice from on a lift? The person that...
The natural or the guy that works at it?
Right. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer to that, but it's just a funny thing to think about maybe. But I have worked pretty hard on squat. It's still a very challenging lift for me, but my favorite cue for me, and these are going to be different for different, I would expect if you talk to 10 people, they might have 10 different favorite squat cues.
Your weaknesses, body proportions.
And I think that's okay. That's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the way it should be.
I will say though, if we had the same favorite squat cue, I'm going to be upset here.
Okay.
Tanner, so.
I don't think it is, but we'll see. It'll be funny if that's the case. But so for me, and we've got a specialty bar here. Actually, it's the Lead FTS Safety Squat Bar that I'm going to be using. It maybe demonstrates my point extra. Is my favorite squat cue, regardless of what type of squat I'm doing, whether it's a back squat, a front squat, a squat with a specialty bar, any of that, maybe a bow bar even. My favorite squat cue is keeping the weight over the entire lift, keeping it over the entire foot, like balance on the foot.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, and this is just like almost purely a mental thing for me, if I can make myself think about my foot feeling balanced throughout the whole lift, a lot of the other stuff that I struggle with, because there's definitely other things I struggle with, but it seems to take care of itself more.
So did you have problems with getting too much on your toes, too much on your heels, anything like that?
Not as so much that I would notice.
Okay.
But it's maybe I just wasn't conscious about it as much.
Okay.
And I'll still do that. Like anything I'm talking about here, I still will screw it up sometimes.
But thinking about your feet does clean up your squat.
It helps.
Yes.
It's definitely one of the most bang for my buck cues. It's the most bang for my buck cue because, I have issues sometimes with my knees collapsing. That used to be a bigger thing. It's not as much of an issue anymore. I have issues when I get really heavy of pitching forward. But there again, if I keep the weight over the center of my foot, a lot of that stuff balances out a little bit more. Balances.
So, little teaser here, Tanner. My cue is different than yours, but it also involves the foot.
Okay. So maybe that tells you that maybe the foot is important here. And I don't know, is it worth a demonstration? I mean, I don't know.
Just to show me what you're thinking here.
You could put like a speech bubble over my head that thinks
like a pop-up music video.
Yeah, that's like balance on the foot while I'm going here. But that's and literally I think about it. Before I start the lift, I'm engaging the tripod. There's people that know way more about this than me, so I'm not going to go into the specifics of it. But I'm engaging the tripod of my foot, one up towards my big toe, one towards the front outside, and then the heel. And then I'm torquing just a little bit. It's like a twist of the foot, like externally rotating the foot.
Don't get too far ahead of yourself here.
Okay, so that's it. So then I'm going down. And I just have to keep that even from the top of the lift to the bottom. Because then even if something else gets a little out of whack, if I'm forcing myself to stay balanced there, it corrects it. So I'll do one more here. And that's it.
Too easy.
Do that, squat 1,000 pounds. It hasn't worked for me yet, but I'm assuming...
Just give it time, it'll be there.
I'm assuming it's going to work.
All right.
So that's my cue.
You ready for mine?
Should we change roles?
Yeah,
here?
let's switch.
Okay. Tommy, a little roll reversal here.
I'm kind of tripped out right now. I don't know what to do.
This is what it's like back here. Do I just chuck this thing in the garbage?
When you're done, just drop it.
Just
throw it
drop
on the ground. Yeah, we don't need the camera anymore.
Okay, I've got a lot of stuff attached and hooked up to me if people don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know what I'm doing over
This
here.
is actually really funny to look at. I feel like we did something crazy here.
This is a parallel universe.
It is, yes.
We're in the multiverse
all the turtles.
We're in the multiverse right now where I know about
Let me tell you
technology.
about this gym, Tanner. So squat's not my thing, but bench and deadlift, no. Scrap all that. Unlike Tanner, my favorite lift is the squat. It's always felt natural for me. I've never had problems with mobility in my hips, my ankles, any of that. Squats just always felt really natural, which makes me want to do the lift more, and I get rewarded for it. And it has, I think, out of all my lifts, been my best lift. You know, my best squat is 550 or whatever the competition kilo breakdown is there. I don't know, that's 545. 700, yeah, I think it rounds up. You're right, you're right there. But with squat, there's a ton of different cues depending on where you have problems. The one I've really liked that helps get everything tight for me, and Tanner kind of hinted at this, is something to do with your feet. And I got to give credit for this one. I saw Donnie Thompson originally talk about this.
Super D.
And it's been enough years that I'm sure I'm totally bastardizing his message. But my takeaway from it, and the way I remember, is he would talk about...
Should I look at your feet?
Yeah, you can look at my feet here. You'd put your feet down, but what you would do is you would almost screw them in. So you kind of like turn things outward just a little bit like that. And I'm not just turning my feet. It's coming out of my knees and hips. Everything's pushing out.
Your feet are more staying in place.
Yep.
And
And I'm like screwing it all into the ground, and that instantly I can just feel the tightness through my calves, my knees, my quads, everything. From my hips down, I feel like I'm just locked in. And so before any big squat, you know, I naturally want to point my toes out just a touch, but I still just think about just pushing that, just turning that that tension outward. And immediately when I go down, I feel like my knees, I have no problem keeping my knees from keeping my knees out. You know, they don't want to come in. A lot of people, they have problems with their knees caving in and staying loose. And I think a lot of that comes with not rooting your feet down correctly. You know, if you're just setting them down, you'll see people do the little happy dance before they squat.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they pick a spot and they go, and then things are caving, moving, all these places. Find your spot. Just give it that little 4-degree turn, just tighten it up and go down, and you'll find that everything is so much tighter when you go throughout the squat. And your feet aren't moving between reps. You know, you're not picking things up and shuffling. So that little twist gets you set up, and you're ready to start banging out some quality squats. So that's my tip. What do you think, Tanner?
I love it. It's funny actually how similar ours are. I guess we're kind of big feet guys now.
It's a foot thing, man.
It's a foot channel now.
Okay, we're going to do some more roll reversal here.
Okay.
What's your favorite cue? What did we miss? Tell us in the comments what your favorite squat cue is. Should we do our favorite bench cues, our favorite deadlift cues? Let us know. Maybe we'll keep this video series going. Make sure to like us on Instagram, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, listen to the Massenomics podcast, and also check out the Massenomics website. We got some gear for sale. You can buy that.
All right, I can't wait to go press some more buttons on this camera.
Hey, set that down.